Okay, so on the subject of new customer acquisition, what are some of the most kind of common challenges that you face with actually finding your new audience?
Probably that actually is genuinely finding new customers is not as easy as you think it might be. So a common misconception we have is that clients assume, or people assume, that where you're spending money, you are automatically going after new customers. We know, based on various measurement pieces that we do, that is most often not the case. The platforms are algorithmically biased to go after where it can get the best results that you tell it to get, and that is most often ROAS or revenue. And the easiest way for it to get that is to churn over your returning customers, and that happens a lot more often than you probably might think. So it's kind of, how do you get out of that space?
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I assume a lot of that is down to trusting your bottom line. So I think one thing you'd probably do 5 years ago would be okay, we've got this new customer acquisition strategy, so whenever we set up this Google Ads campaign, we'll take the bid for new customers only. But in reality, that may not be obviously getting you new customers, and quite often I think it's a challenge for people to maybe just accept that, because it's trust your bottom line. If your bottom line's not saying you're getting net new, then obviously that feature's not working, but people get so fixated on platform stuff.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of relative to how much you're spending versus the size of your business. Can you see that in your bottom line?
Yeah.
Is that actually possible, or are there many other factors that would impact whether you can even see a pattern there? So that's one thing to consider. The second thing to consider is exactly that: it's been categorically proven to not work within the Google Ads context to select the bid for new customers only. Yeah. And I recently had this with a client where we tested it for over a month. We had the best exclusion lists we could give it, Klaviyo customer data being passed in, and it was telling us, the platform was telling us, that we were driving 90% new customer acquisition. And we actually saw a decline in the business numbers. Bearing in mind, this was the only real source of marketing that we were doing for that business, and it was actually doing the opposite of what we wanted it to do. So, this has been anecdotally proven and shown by a lot of people in the space who have tested this functionality. It just doesn't work, and largely that's because Google struggles to match data well, and it doesn't really know who's new or existing anyway. So just selecting those settings in platforms doesn't actually work. It's similar with Meta. Meta is better at it, but you have a similar function in where you can go, I want to bid after new customers only. I'll feed it a list, go off and do it. It still struggles to do that. So to get out of that, you've kind of got two options really. You go further up funnel, where you can go legitimately after colder traffic. So you're not optimizing on purchase, you're not optimizing on anything that the platform then trains itself to get by any means, which is usually warm traffic or existing customer traffic. You're going out and giving it license to actually go after net new people. And even then, we've got a couple of clients that run off third-party attribution software, and even when we are as cold as we possibly feel we can be in terms of our exclusion lists, we're up a funnel. The best we can really see is 50 to 60% net new visits from those campaigns, which, if you think about it, is crazy low when you're geared completely to going after new customers. So that just gives you a flavor of how little or how difficult it actually is to scale out of your warm traffic, particularly if you're a reasonably sized business and you've got a relatively small marketing budget. It's hard to do that. If you're a brand new business or still in that growth phase, then it is a lot easier because you don't have that returning or warm traffic base in which to get kind of churned up on in the platform. But yeah, it's really, really hard. So it's a combination of going further up funnel and trusting yourself to be able to do that towards the end of new customer acquisition. Obviously, we've touched on how difficult that can be and the expectation management that you need to put around that. And then the second part becomes more technical in that we're looking at ways in which we can only fire new customer purchase events, for example, and then training algorithms based on things like that. So that's something that we're looking into at the moment to see if that's going to give us more viability. Because if we don't show the platforms that any existing customers are coming through, then we're kind of forcing it to train itself on only new, and then we'll have to find ways to measure that differently. So yeah, it's not easy. it's definitely not as easy as people think it is. Or just go off and find, net new customers. And then you've got that balancing act of, okay, I am prospecting, but I'm not seeing a return here because I'm upper funnel and the metric set's totally different. So it's all of those things in like a big digital marketing soup that we have to figure out.
It's probably quite an annoying question, but how would you do your splits between kind of upper funnel customer acquisition and whatever your kind of existing marketing strategy is?
Well, firstly, I'd look at, do I have scope in my existing business or my existing customer business to really grow? Like, am I maximizing my existing customer potential? If I'm not, I'd be straight into my email flows. I'd be looking at offer architecture for existing customers, product upsells, anything that I don't need to pay for would be my first port call. And then I'd probably have maybe 20% of my overall paid budget actively remarketing existing customer lists with those similar types of messages and offers. But really what you want paid marketing to do is go and capture new customers. That's really what they're there for. They are prospecting tools in the most basic sense. There's no point paying premium to recapture your existing customers. Yes, you will need to, because not all customers are loyal and there's a lot of shopping around and things like that. But it's really difficult to make that spend valuable to you or profitable to you when there are potentially better tools to do that, like email, that can do most of that work for you. If you've totally maxed out your efficiency on email, then potentially look to do something within the paid space to get in front of them and try and upsell them. But you need to be really clever with your cost structures there and make sure you're only bidding what you're going to be profitable on because you've already paid for it.
So how exactly do you know that you've oversaturated your existing audience?
Usually you will see a decline in your overall business numbers. So when you're returning, you look at your lifetime value. So for example, if your lifetime value is a certain level and then you implement that strategy, you're probably going to want to see 6 to 12 months worth of data to see if your lifetime value numbers have uplifted, i.e. of the customers that are coming through or the customers from that period, are they starting to buy more? Is your returning order value increasing? Is the repeat purchase rate increasing? If it's going in that direction, it's increasing, you've probably got more growth to go. If it starts to flatline and you're not seeing that growth anymore, then you probably have begun to oversaturate that particular audience.